There comes a moment when your spirit whispers, "You are pouring into everyone, but who is pouring into you?" And that whisper, my friend, is the beginning of your transformation. Your energy is a currency more valuable than gold, more precious than time, and more fragile than the human heart. Yet so many of us spend it recklessly, giving it away without thought, without limit, without protection. We hand it to people who do not appreciate it, situations that do not deserve it, and habits that quietly drain the life out of us. But the truth is simple. Your energy determines the quality of your life. If you waste it, your life feels wasted. If you invest it wisely, your life begins to bloom. There comes a moment when you must pause and ask yourself, who am I giving my energy to? What am I feeding with my time, my attention, my emotions? And is it strengthening me or weakening me? Because every interaction you entertain, every conversation you allow, every environment you stand in, all of it requires energy. And not all of it deserves it. Many people have been conditioned to believe that giving endlessly is a sign of kindness, humility, or strength. But what they never tell you is that uncontrolled giving leads to depletion, and a depleted soul cannot shine, cannot inspire, cannot rise. A person who gives without boundaries becomes a person who survives instead of a person who thrives. There is nothing noble in being drained. There is nothing heroic in being exhausted. Your exhaustion is not proof of your goodness. It is proof that you have forgotten yourself. Every day you wake up with a limited reserve of emotional, mental, and spiritual energy. Think of it as the amount of life you have for that day. Now imagine spending most of it worrying about people who never worry about you. Imagine giving your peace to someone who only brings conflict. Imagine pouring your kindness into someone who mistakes it for weakness. Imagine giving your strength to situations that only break you. This is how so many hearts become tired, not because they are weak, but because they are giving too much of themselves to the wrong places. To spend your energy on what strengthens you means you must finally become intentional. You must choose where your spirit flows, where your heart invests, where your mind focuses. It means understanding that not every call deserves to be answered, not every invitation deserves to be accepted, and not every person deserves access to your inner world. Some people come to you not because they value you, but because they know you will always say yes. And saying yes to everyone becomes a silent way of saying no to yourself. There will always be people who drain you, not because they are evil, but because they are unhealed. They take without knowing they are taking. They lean on you without noticing you are tired. They come to you for comfort without realizing you are breaking. You must learn to step back from these patterns, not out of anger, but out of wisdom. Not because you don't care, but because you finally care enough about yourself. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to say, I cannot carry this anymore. You are allowed to walk away from conversations that damage your peace, from responsibilities that were never yours, from people who mistake your love for an obligation. Protecting your energy is not selfish, it is sacred. It is the way you honor the life within you, because the more energy you protect, the more room you create for your own healing, your own growth, your own transformation. Spending energy on what strengthens you means feeding the relationships that nourish you, not the ones that confuse you. It means pouring into dreams that lift you, not the fears that limit you. It means choosing habits that build your soul, not the ones that break your spirit. It means allowing yourself to rest, to breathe, to step back from the chaos long enough to hear your own heart again. There is a quiet power that grows inside a person who stops chasing, stops pleasing, stops proving, and simply starts preserving. When you no longer give your energy to people who take advantage of your generosity, you begin to see the beauty of your worth. When you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, you reclaim your voice. When you finally allow your energy to flow toward things that matter, your purpose, your peace, your growth, life begins to rearrange itself around your new priorities. You must learn to listen to your body when it's tired, your spirit when it's heavy, your heart when it's uncomfortable. These are signs that something is draining you. These are messages that you cannot ignore. The body keeps count. The spirit remembers. The heart always knows. And when your heart whispers that something is taking too much from you, trust it, believe it, honor it. That whisper is not weakness, it is wisdom. Start spending your energy on places that strengthen you, the quiet mornings where you breathe deeply, the people who celebrate your presence instead of exploiting it, the dreams that scare you because they are big enough to grow you, the habits that bring you back to yourself, the moments of silence that reconnect you to peace. These are the investments that multiply. These are the choices that elevate you. These are the spaces where your energy grows instead of disappears. And don't underestimate the power of stepping away. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is simply walking out of rooms where your soul feels small. You were not made to shrink. You were not made to suffer silently. You were not made to be a never-ending well for those who never pour back into you. You were made to shine, to rise, to expand, to flourish. And you can only do that when your energy is placed in the right soil. Surround yourself with people who respect your boundaries, who uplift your spirit, who speak life into you. Spend time on the passions that awaken your creativity, the practices that deepen your peace, the environments where your presence feels valued. These are not luxuries. These are necessities. These are the things that strengthen you. Your energy is powerful. It is precious. It is limited. And once it is gone, you cannot get it back. So spend it like the treasure it is. Give it to what grows you. Give it to what builds you. Give it to what honors your worth. And guard it fiercely from anything that does not. There is a weight that never belonged to you, yet you have carried it for years. You learn to hold people's worries as if they were your own, to absorb their sadness as if it were your responsibility, to fix their chaos even when your own heart was trembling. Somewhere along the way, you were taught, silently, subtly, repeatedly, that it was your job to be the strong one, the healer, the calm in everyone else's storm. And because your heart is tender, because your spirit is kind, because you feel deeply, you accepted a duty that was never meant for you. But the truth is simple. You are not responsible for carrying everyone's storm. You were never born to be the emotional shelter of the world. You were born to live, to breathe, to grow, to evolve. You were born to feel your own life, not drown in the storms that belong to others. And the storms people bring, their fears, their failures, their bad habits, their unresolved pain, are not burdens you are meant to hold. You see, people will hand you their storms without hesitation, not because they are cruel, but because they are afraid to face them. They will place their disappointments in your hands, expecting you to soothe them. They will pour their frustrations into your heart, expecting you to carry what they refuse to confront. They will come to you as if your energy is an endless well, as if your strength has no limit, as if your compassion has no boundary. And because you want to help, because you want to comfort, you allow yourself to be weighed down by burdens that do not belong to you. But every time you do that, you make yourself smaller. You make your voice quieter, you dim your own light so others can see, and in doing so, you forget one of the most important truths of life. Each person must learn to stand in the rain of their own choices, their own wounds, their own healing. You cannot become so drenched in someone else's storm that you forget to dry your own soul. There is a difference between supporting someone and saving them. Support is love. Saving is sacrifice. Support allows you to stand beside someone. Saving requires you to stand in front of them and take the hit meant for their growth, you cannot keep doing that. When you constantly rescue people, you teach them that they do not need to grow. When you constantly carry their storms, you teach them that their healing is optional. And when you shield them from consequences, you become a prisoner to their chaos. People must learn to take responsibility for their own lives. They must learn to face the storm that comes from their decisions, their patterns, their beliefs. They must learn to look at themselves honestly without hiding behind your strength. Growth requires discomfort. Healing requires confrontation. Transformation requires acceptance. And none of these things can happen if you are the one carrying someone else's weight. You have to understand this deeply. You can love someone with all your heart and still refuse to carry what is not yours. You can support someone without becoming their emotional storage unit. You can be compassionate without being consumed. You can offer a hand without offering your entire soul. Healthy love does not ask you to drown. Healthy love does not break your spirit. Healthy love does not silence your needs. And healthy boundaries do not mean you love less. They mean you love wisely. Letting someone carry their own storm is not abandonment. It is respect. It is respect for their capacity to grow, for their ability to rise, for their potential to heal. It is acknowledging that they too have the strength to face their darkness. They may not believe it yet, but growth often begins where comfort ends. And sometimes your stepping back is the very thing that forces someone to step forward. There is a quiet danger in always being the rescuer. You become the person who listens at 2 a.m. while no one ever asks if you're okay. You become the person who shows up for every crisis but suffers silently through your own. You become the person who heals others while your own heart goes unnoticed. You become the person who gives so much that you forget how to receive. Your life deserves balance. Your heart deserves care. Your spirit deserves rest. You deserve people who meet you halfway, who bring you peace instead of storms, who understand that your shoulders are not built to carry the world. It is time to return those storms to their rightful owners. It is time to hand back the fear you didn't create, the chaos you didn't cause, the emotional weight you didn't earn. You can say, I care about you, but I cannot carry this for you. You can say, I'm here to support, but I cannot fix what is not mine. You can say, I love you, but your storm is yours to face. And yes, at first, people may not understand. Some may feel abandoned because they were comfortable relying on your strength. Some may accuse you of changing because they benefited from your inability to say no. Some may call you selfish because they cannot imagine you choosing yourself. Let them. Their reaction reveals their dependence, not your duty. You are breaking a cycle. You are not betraying anyone. You must remember something essential. The storm that belongs to someone else will always destroy you faster than it destroys them. It drains your energy, clouds your mind, and interrupts your peace. It keeps you awake at night, worrying about things you cannot control. It damages your well-being while doing nothing to improve theirs. Your responsibility is to be a lighthouse, not a lifeboat. A lighthouse guides, a lifeboat carries. A lighthouse stands tall through the storm, shining light, offering direction, giving hope. But it does not abandon its place. It does not jump into the sea. It does not drown for anyone. It simply shines. Let that be your role, a steady light, not a sinking ship. Stop carrying storms that are not yours. Your life, your peace, your purpose depend on it. Your heart has its own weather to tend to, its own skies to clear, its own light to reclaim. You are allowed to put your burdens down. You are allowed to breathe again. You are allowed to be free from the weight that was never meant for you. There comes a moment in every person's life when the heart grows tired of bending, tired of stretching itself to fit into spaces that were never built for it. Tired of sacrificing comfort for the sake of peace, tired of being available for everyone while being present for no one, not even itself. That moment is the quiet beginning of something sacred. Boundaries, not walls, not resistance, not coldness, but self-respect blooming from within. Boundaries are not a weapon. They are not an act of aggression. They are not a punishment for others. Boundaries are a homecoming. They are the way you return to yourself after years of losing pieces of who you are to people who never deserved them. They are the way you reclaim your voice after silencing yourself to keep the peace. They are the way you finally acknowledge, my needs matter too. Many people misunderstand boundaries because they confuse access with love. They believe that if you care about someone, you must give them unlimited access to your time, your energy, your emotions, your attention. They think love means availability. They think kindness means compliance. They think closeness means sacrifice. And for a long time, maybe you believed that too. You believed love meant giving beyond your capacity. You believed loyalty meant tolerating discomfort. You believed patience meant accepting disrespect quietly. And so you allowed people to cross lines you didn't know you were allowed to draw. But one day, your spirit whispered, enough. Not out of anger, but out of awakening. Not because you stopped caring about others, but because you finally started caring about yourself. Boundaries are the language of self-respect. They are the gentle but firm way you tell the world, my heart is valuable, my time is precious, my energy is sacred, and I will not allow anything or anyone to drain me. Setting a boundary does not mean you love people less. It means you love yourself enough not to disappear inside them. It means you are willing to disappoint others so you do not abandon yourself. It means you understand that your well-being is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And yes, boundaries will upset some people, not because you are doing something wrong, but because they were comfortable when you had none. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will be the first to question your change. They might call you distant. They might say you're acting differently. They might claim you've become cold. But their reaction is not a reflection of your character. It is a reflection of their dependence. You are not responsible for their discomfort. You are responsible for your peace. Think about how many times you said yes when your whole soul was begging you to say no. Think about how many times you tolerated disrespect because you didn't want to start a problem. Think about how many times you stayed quiet to avoid conflict, even when the silence cost you a piece of yourself. Those moments were not acts of love, they were acts of fear. Fear of losing someone, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being alone, fear of disappointing others. But boundaries are not created from fear, they are created from truth. They come from the realization that your spirit cannot remain whole if you allow yourself to be broken in small pieces for the comfort of others. They come from the understanding that love without respect is imbalance and compassion without limits is exhaustion. A boundary is you saying, I choose myself too. It is you saying, I will not shrink to make you feel bigger. It is you saying, I will not carry more than what my heart can hold. It is you saying, my peace is not negotiable. And when you start practicing this, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in years, relief. Not relief that others are kept away, but relief that you are finally protecting yourself. You start to feel grounded, present, strong, clear. You start to breathe differently. You start to recognize when something doesn't feel right. You start to trust your intuition again. You start to honor the boundaries your soul has been begging you to draw. Boundaries also teach others how to love you. Without them, people assume you are okay with everything. They assume you are comfortable with what hurts you. They assume your silence equals acceptance. But when you express your limits clearly, lovingly, firmly, you give others a roadmap to your heart. You give them the opportunity to treat you the way you deserve to be treated. Those who truly care for you will understand. They will adapt. They will respect your newfound clarity. They will appreciate the honesty. They will grow with you. But those who resist your boundaries reveal their true intentions. They were never looking for a relationship. They were looking for a place to unload their needs, their wounds, their wants. And once they realize they cannot drain you anymore, they leave. Let them go. That exit is your protection. You must also understand that boundaries are not something you set once. They are an ongoing practice. They require you to check in with yourself, to ask, does this feel right? Does this honor me? Does this drain me? Does this align with who I am becoming? Because growth changes your limits. Healing changes your limits. Awareness changes your limits. What you tolerated in your past life has no place in the future you are building. There is courage in saying no. There is strength in stepping back. There is wisdom in choosing where your energy goes. And there is deep self-love in recognizing that not every battle deserves your presence. Not every invitation deserves your acceptance. Not every person deserves your access. You are learning to protect your heart without closing it. You are learning to love others without losing yourself. You are learning to give without emptying your spirit. You are learning to be gentle yet firm, open yet guarded, kind yet discerning. This is what boundaries teach you, that respect begins within, that you cannot expect others to value you if you do not value yourself, that your time, your emotions, your mental space, your peace, they all deserve protection. And the moment you realize that, everything in your life begins to shift. There is a strange clarity that arrives the moment you decide to pull back. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, not out of punishment, but out of exhaustion, wisdom, and self-worth. When you stop over-giving, over-explaining, over-proving, something powerful begins to happen. The noise quiets, the pressure softens, and the truth that was always there but hidden beneath your effort, finally rises to the surface. Pulling back is not a dramatic act. It is not loud. It is not confrontational. It is a gentle shift, a quiet redirection of your energy back into yourself. You simply stop trying so hard. You stop showing up in places where you are unseen. You stop pouring into people who never pour back. You stop initiating conversations, fixing misunderstandings, apologizing for things you never broke. You stop begging for reciprocity. You stop carrying connections on your back. And when you do this, when you step away even slightly, people reveal themselves. The ones who cared only when you were convenient will disappear. The ones who valued you will step forward. The ones who were using you will grow distant. The ones who love you will notice your silence. Pulling back is the mirror you hold up to relationships, and in that mirror, intentions become unmistakable. For so long, you believed that if you tried a little harder, people would meet you halfway. If you reached out first, they would eventually reach back. If you were patient enough, understanding enough, forgiving enough, they would see your heart and honor it. You believed your effort could compensate for their lack of effort. But relationships, real ones, don't work that way. You cannot be the only one building the bridge, tending the fire, carrying the connection. When you pull back, you finally see who was walking toward you and who was only standing still. People who genuinely value you feel the shift. They sense your distance. They notice the quiet. They reach out, not because you demanded it, but because they care. They check on you. They ask if you're okay. They put in effort because they want you in their life, not because they want something from you. These are the people who were walking with you all along. They just needed you to pause to prove it. But then there are the others, the ones who only stay connected if you are doing all the work, the ones who respond only when you initiate, the ones who take your presence for granted because it has always been so easily given. When you pull back from these people, something revealing happens. Nothing. No message, no effort, no check-in, no curiosity, just silence, the loudest truth of all. Your absence exposes what your presence was hiding. Some people were not holding on to you. They were holding on to the benefits that came from having you. They were holding on to the way you listened, the way you showed up, the way you supported, the way you made them feel important. And when you stop offering those things without limit, their interest fades. Not because you changed, but because they no longer have a reason to stay. Pulling back is not an act of manipulation. It is an act of observation. You are not creating distance to test people. You are creating space to see clearly. When you stop filling every gap, you see who tries to close the distance. When you stop carrying conversations, you see who lets them die. When you stop giving endlessly, you see who was only there to take. This clarity is painful, yes. It exposes truths you tried to ignore. It reveals connections you believed were strong, but were held together only by your effort. It forces you to confront the reality that some people never showed up because they never intended to. But this clarity is also liberating. It frees you from illusions. It frees you from emotional labor disguised as love. It frees you from relationships built only on your sacrifice. When you pull back, you also begin to see yourself more clearly. You recognize how much you gave, how much you tolerated, how much you accepted, just to keep certain people in your life. You notice the ways you abandoned your own needs to accommodate theirs. You see how often you stayed quiet to avoid conflict, even when the silence hurt you. You realize that the imbalance was not love, it was survival. This awareness creates a shift inside you. You start honoring yourself more. You start expecting reciprocity instead of begging for it. You start valuing your energy instead of throwing it at people who never earned it. You start choosing relationships that feel mutual, effortless, and real. Pulling back also teaches you something essential. You do not have to chase people who want to stay. People who truly want you will always move toward you. They will match your effort. They will value your presence. They will appreciate your heart. They will protect the connection, not exploit it. And they will never let silence replace something meaningful. But people who were only there out of convenience will fall away, and let them fall. Let them fade gently out of your life. Their departure is not a loss. It is a clearing. It is space being made for better, healthier, more aligned souls to enter. There is power in your pullback. It is not withdrawal, it is redirection. It is not punishment, it is preservation. It is not an ending, it is a revelation. When you stop doing the emotional labor of others, you begin doing the emotional labor of yourself. And that is where your healing begins. That is where your growth deepens. That is where your relationships transform. In the quiet space you create by pulling back, you finally see who belongs in your life, not because you hold them there, but because they choose to stay. You see who loves you for who you are, not what you offer. You see who respects you even when you are not giving. And most importantly, you see that you never had to chase anyone. You only needed to stop running first. There comes a point in every person's life when noise becomes too heavy to carry. The noise of expectations, the noise of opinions, the noise of conflict, the noise of people who speak loudly but listen rarely. And in that moment, something inside you whispers a truth you may have forgotten. Your silence is not weakness. Your silence is not surrender. Your silence is not avoidance. Your silence, when chosen with intention, is powerful, so powerful that it can become the very medicine your spirit has been waiting for. Silence is the space where you finally hear what the world tries to drown out. It is where your soul speaks in a language deeper than words. It is where your wounds rise to the surface, not to torment you, but to be tended, seen, and healed. When you stop explaining yourself, defending yourself, or proving yourself, you create an opening within, a place where clarity grows and peace begins its slow, graceful return. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of understanding. Many people misunderstand silence. They think it means powerlessness. They think it means you have nothing to say. They think it means they have won the argument, the moment, the control. But silence is not a loss. Silence is a choice. Silence is you stepping out of the battlefield of unnecessary conflict and stepping into the sanctuary of your own truth. You do not always have to respond. You do not always have to react. You do not always have to correct every lie spoken about you or participate in every drama that tries to pull you in. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing, because silence protects your energy from being wasted on what does not deserve it. When you choose silence intentionally, you reclaim your power. You send a message without speaking. I am not available for chaos. I am not accessible to negativity. I am not here to be drained. I am choosing myself. Silence also reveals. It reveals the nature of people around you. The moment you become quiet, you will see who feels entitled to your attention, who grows uncomfortable without your constant reassurance, who begins to stir conflict because they are addicted to your reaction. When you stop feeding people with your replies, you begin to see their truth. Some people never wanted resolution, they wanted a response. Some people never wanted understanding, they wanted control. Some people never wanted peace, they wanted permission to continue draining you. Silence removes that permission. Your silence becomes a mirror that shows them their own behavior. But silence is not only about others, it is even more about you. Silence is a return to yourself after being stretched thin by the demands of the world. It is sitting with the parts of you that have been ignored. It is hearing the fears you buried, the pain you avoided, the hopes you abandoned. It is reconnecting with the version of you who has been waiting patiently beneath the layers of noise. Healing begins the moment you stop distracting yourself from yourself. In silence, the truth that you have been running from finally sits beside you. The grief you avoided comes forward, not to overwhelm you, but to be acknowledged. The confusion you masked reveals its roots. The exhaustion you pretended not to feel becomes impossible to ignore. Silence forces you to feel what you have postponed, and feeling is the beginning of healing. Your silence becomes a salve. It becomes rest for your nervous system. It becomes protection for your heart. It becomes a moment where your thoughts finally settle like dust at the bottom of a glass of water. What was blurry becomes clear. What was chaotic becomes ordered. What was loud inside you softens until it becomes guidance. In silence, you learn to trust yourself again. Your intuition, long hidden beneath the noise of opinions, emerges like a quiet flame. Your inner wisdom, often overshadowed by external pressures, begins to speak confidently. Your heart, once silenced by the demands of others, finally gets to tell you what it needs. And slowly, gently, you begin to recognize your truth. Not the truth others forced upon you, not the truth shaped by fear, but the truth that your spirit has known all along. Silence teaches you that healing is not always dramatic. Sometimes healing is a quiet evening alone. Sometimes healing is choosing not to react. Sometimes healing is staying still. Sometimes healing is closing the door on a conversation that drains you. Sometimes healing is just breathing and letting life settle without rushing to fix anything. Silence teaches you that you do not have to chase closure. Sometimes silence is the closure. The absence of words becomes an answer. The absence of reaction becomes a boundary. The absence of explanation becomes a declaration of self-worth. Silence gives you freedom from the emotional labor of carrying other people's chaos. It places the responsibility of their behavior back in their hands where it always belonged. Your silence is not emptiness, it is elevation. It is you rising above what no longer deserves you. It is you refusing to engage in cycles that only harm you. It is you choosing peace over proving. healing over reacting, self-respect over pleasing. It is you stepping into a higher version of yourself, one who no longer needs to respond to everything that calls your name. And in that silence, something beautiful happens. You begin to refill, your energy replenishes, your heart becomes lighter, your mind becomes clearer. You begin to hear your own laughter again. You begin to feel your own presence again. And slowly, you begin to return to yourself. Not the tired version, not the drained version, not the anxious version, but the real version of you. Silence is powerful because it brings you back home. Home to your breath, home to your boundaries, home to your healing, home to the parts of you that always knew you were meant for more than chaos. When you choose silence, you choose yourself. And choosing yourself is the beginning of every transformation you have been praying for. There comes a moment in your life when you realize that your growth is not just a personal journey. It becomes a mirror that reflects other people's insecurities. You begin to speak differently, move differently, think differently, and suddenly the world around you shifts. Some people celebrate you, but others grow distant, quiet, or strangely irritated. Not because you have done something wrong, but because your evolution reminds them of their own stagnation. Your glow exposes where they have dimmed. Your courage highlights where they still hesitate. And your rise disrupts the version of you that made them comfortable. But hear this truth clearly. You were not born to shrink yourself to fit into anyone's small expectations. You are not here to mute your greatness so someone else can feel tall. You are not responsible for minimizing your spirit so others can remain unchallenged. Your growth is sacred, your transformation is necessary, and your journey is not a negotiation. When you start to grow, you will notice something subtle happen. People who once applauded you may begin to shift their tone. They may question your choices, making them sound like concerns. They may joke about your new habits, as if belittling your improvement will bring you back to the version of you they preferred. They may pretend not to see your progress at all. Silence can be its own kind of envy. Indifference can be its own kind of resistance. Some people liked you better when you were tired, uncertain, or doubting yourself because that version was easier to manage, easier to predict, easier to keep small. But the moment you choose growth, you choose discomfort, yours and theirs. Growth is not gentle. It requires shedding layers you once protected. It asks you to walk away from places you once called safe. It pushes you to question old patterns, old environments, and old connections. And while you're navigating all that internal work, you will also be navigating the emotional distance that forms when others don't know how to meet the new version of you. Some people will say, "You've changed," not as a compliment, but as a subtle accusation. And you must be strong enough to say, "Yes, I have," without apologizing for it. Growth is movement, and not everyone is willing to move with you. Some are attached to the history they have with you. They know who you were, not who you are becoming. And because they can't evolve with you, they try to hold you in the past. They look at you through an old lens and become uneasy when your present no longer fits their outdated picture. Your growth challenges the comfort of familiarity. It asks others to adapt, reflect, or rise, and not everyone is ready for that work. Some people retreat because you no longer feed the parts of them that thrived on your insecurity. Some distance themselves because your discipline makes their excuses louder. Some become colder because your success threatens the hierarchy they created in their mind. You were predictable before. Now you are expanding, and expansion can shake the ground beneath those who never wanted to move. But you cannot dim yourself for anyone. You cannot pause your healing so someone else can avoid theirs. You cannot shrink your dreams so others don't feel small in comparison. You must keep growing even when your transformation creates tension. You must keep evolving even when your progress is misunderstood. You must keep rising even when your rise makes others uncomfortable. Your soul did not come here to be frozen in a version of yourself you have outgrown. So grow even when the room gets quiet. Grow even when the congratulations stop. Grow even when you feel the weight of other people's discomfort. Grow when they whisper, when they distance themselves, when they no longer clap for you. Their reaction is a reflection of their internal battles, not your worth. Emotional resistance from others is not a sign to shrink. It is proof that you are elevating. Growth will cost you people, habits, and environments that were never meant to stay long-term. And though it may sting, you must remember that empty space is not a loss. It is preparation. New growth requires new soil. New chapters require new energy. New levels require new company. What looks like rejection is often divine rearrangement. What feels like abandonment is often clearing. What appears as discomfort from others is often confirmation that you're awakening to a higher version of yourself. And yes, at times you will outgrow even the people you love deeply. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you stopped abandoning yourself to keep them comfortable. Growth asks you to honor the truth of who you are becoming. It asks you to step into your potential even when the world around you wants you to remain familiar. You cannot heal and stay the same. You cannot evolve and remain unchanged. You cannot rise and not disturb the structures built around your old limitations. Some people will eventually return with respect once they see the strength of your transformation. Others will stay behind, watching from a distance, unable to understand how you found the courage to do what they avoided. But your responsibility is not to be understood. Your responsibility is to be authentic. Your work is to become the person your soul always knew you could be. So let them be uncomfortable. Let them question. Let them withdraw. Let them misunderstand your journey. You are not growing for them. You are growing for the version of you that once prayed for a breakthrough. You are growing for the child inside you who deserved better. You are growing for the future you who will look back and say, "Thank you for not shrinking." Your growth is your liberation. Your transformation is your offering to this life. And those who are meant to walk with you will feel inspired, not threatened. They will rise with you, not resist your rise. They will celebrate your evolution, not resent it. And until you find those people, walk boldly toward your becoming. Grow loudly, grow quietly, grow steadily, but grow anyway. There comes a moment when you finally understand that you are not waiting for life to change. You are waiting for yourself to change. For years, you may have poured all your energy outward, giving to everyone, thinking that sacrifice was the path to love, belonging, and stability. You tried to be the dependable one, the strong one, the one who always shows up, even when you were exhausted. But the truth is simple and profound. When you begin to give more to yourself, when you commit to becoming your own priority, life begins to shift in ways you never imagined. The world outside starts responding to the investment you make within. People often think transformation begins with a dramatic external event, but the deepest shifts begin quietly, internally, in the small sacred choices you make every day. The moment you say, "I matter," something powerful starts rearranging in your life. You take back your time. You protect your peace. You choose your well-being over pleasing others. You allow yourself to rest without guilt. You stop over-functioning in relationships that underappreciate you. And suddenly, the parts of your life that once felt heavy begin to lighten, not because the world changed, but because you did. Giving more to yourself is not selfishness. It is self-awareness. It is a declaration that your worth is non-negotiable. It is the courage to choose yourself after years of forgetting yourself. And when you do, life begins to unfold differently. The people who only valued you for what you provided start to drift away because they can no longer feed off the version of you that overgave. The opportunities that once passed you by suddenly notice you because confidence and clarity open doors that exhaustion and insecurity kept closed. Even your inner world feels different, quieter, softer, more grounded, because you have finally given yourself permission to receive what you once gave to everyone else. When you give to yourself, your boundaries change. You no longer say yes when your spirit says no. You no longer tolerate chaos because you understand the cost it takes on your peace. You no longer remain in spaces that drain you because you have learned to recognize the difference between being needed and being valued. Giving to yourself teaches you to trust yourself again. It teaches you to listen to the voice you once ignored. It teaches you to treat yourself with the same tenderness you gave away so freely. Life rearranges itself around those who choose themselves. You begin attracting people who respect your boundaries, who honor your energy, who meet you with reciprocity rather than expectation. You begin seeing opportunities that match your worth, not your wounds. You begin noticing that your preferences, your voice, your needs matter in ways you once dismissed. And as you invest more love, more time, more care into your own existence, everything around you begins aligning with that love. When you choose yourself, something else happens. The world stops feeling so heavy. You stop carrying burdens that aren't yours. You stop trying to fix situations that don't want to be fixed. You stop chasing people who never tried to meet you halfway. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Giving to yourself is an act of release, a letting go of everything that once held you captive. For years, you may have waited for someone to come into your life and finally treat you the way you deserved. But the moment you start treating yourself that way, the universe responds. It brings people who match the love you give yourself. It brings situations that honor your worth. It brings clarity where confusion once lived. You become the standard, the blueprint, the example for how others must treat you. And anyone who cannot match that standard falls away without you having to force it. Giving more to yourself also reveals who was only benefiting from your lack of self-prioritization. The relationships built on your constant giving begin to feel different. You start to see where you once overextended. You notice who becomes irritated or distant when you stop abandoning yourself to meet their needs. And though it may hurt, it is also liberation. Life removes what cannot exist at the level of your evolution. Not everything or everyone is meant to rise with you. The truth is, when you start giving more to yourself, you stop living in survival mode. You stop settling for crumbs. You stop accepting the bare minimum. You stop mistaking emotional exhaustion for loyalty. You stop defining your value by how useful you are to others. You step out of the shadows of self-neglect and into the light of self-honoring. You begin to understand that your relationship with yourself sets the tone for every relationship in your life. If you treat yourself like an afterthought, others will too. If you pour into yourself, others learn to pour into you. If you speak to yourself gently, the world begins to reflect that gentleness. When you raise the level of how you show up for yourself, everything aligned with the lower version of you naturally falls away. Giving more to yourself is a practice, a daily devotion. It looks like choosing rest over rushing. It looks like nurturing your mind and body. It looks like allowing joy back into your life. It looks like being proud of your progress, even when no one else sees it. It looks like forgiving yourself for the years you didn't know how to choose yourself. It looks like understanding that you are deserving, always have been, always will be. Life does not rearrange itself for someone who is running on empty. It rearranges for the person who finally understands they were meant to live fully, not barely. When you give to yourself, you step into alignment, and alignment is magnetic. It pulls toward you everything meant for your highest good. The day you choose yourself is the day life begins to shift in ways nothing else ever could. Your energy becomes clearer, your path becomes broader, your spirit becomes lighter, and life in all its grace rearranges itself around your becoming. My friend, you were never meant to be exhausted, empty, or overlooked. You were meant to rise, slowly at first, then all at once, into the fullness of who you truly are. When you give less energy to what drains you and more to what grows you, life begins to move differently. Your peace deepens, your path clears, your spirit returns home. So today, begin again. Choose yourself, not just once, but every single day, and watch how life, with gentle but undeniable force, shifts completely in your favor.